Frank Ntilikina has already shown some real signs defensively in his first NBA season. There have been moments when he's been defending NBA point guards, shooting guards, and he's been able to actually make their days a bit more difficult. And it does make sense when you look at the scouting reports of Ntilikina. Everyone has come to a consensus, everyone being those who scout potential NBA prospects, that the dude really should be a quality defender in the league. And given that he's 19 years old and is already pretty decent, if we fast forward, I don't know, 3 seasons or 4 seasons when he's approaching his prime, I mean, at that point, he's only going to be, what, 22 or 23 years old? I mean, he really could be one of the top 6 or 7 perimeter defenders in the NBA once we go into the future a little bit here. And from a physical standpoint, I mean, Ntilikina's 6'5", about 190 pounds, so you assume he just gets a little heavier, and he already has shown good signs. I mean, Knicks fans should really be excited about what Ntilikina can be defensively for them. Now, of course, this is not the only reason why I think you should be looking forward to Frank's improvement over the next few seasons. On the offensive side of the floor, I mean, is he going to be a Dennis Smith type where he's just attacking the defense in constant pick and rolls and finishing at the rim and dunking and drawing, I don't know, 5 or 6 fouls a game? Probably not, but he can still be a quality off-ball player. Once again, all the scouts that have been watching him for a few years will tell you the three-point shot should be a real thing for Ntilikina. And I would hope that a head coach of his would recognize his ability to play off the ball and run some real offense where he's coming across screens where he can either get open for a three-point shot, or he could force a switch, have a big guy on him, and then he could attack that type of guy off the bounce. Defense and three-point shooting is just so important in today's NBA, and it seems like Frank is going to be very good at both of those things. And so as long as he can round out the rest of his game in terms of not turning the ball over too much and still being at least somewhat of a playmaker, then I think he could be one of the better point guards in the NBA today. But as we do dive a bit more into this video, there are going to be some NBA comparisons I look at, and I try to determine, you know, how good is he going to become at all the other stuff. And I think that'll determine the type of NBA player that's already in the league that he could kind of mirror as he gets a bit older in his NBA career. I mean, number one, how many assists is he going to average? He's already around 3.5 assists right now, and we have to assume that if his ball handling keeps up and he keeps on improving and he's able to beat guys off the dribble, that his scoring could creep up there as well. I'll be surprised if Frank is ever like a 20-plus point scorer just because he's not super athletic. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't average 20-plus points, but that means you have to be like one of the best shooters in the league, or potentially even the best one outside of like Steph Curry, basically. Let's dive into some potential NBA comparisons here. So, I think one could be George Hill, who, by the way, is having a really rough season for the Sacramento Kings right now. But Hill, throughout his career, at times has been like a 12.4 assist kind of a point guard who has a dominant ball handler next to him, whether it be Paul George, Lance Stevenson, Gordon Hayward. These are the type of teams that Hill has had the most success on. There is a chance that Ntilikina's ball handling and overall ability to attack could be better than what George Hill's has been, and I also think his playmaking could be a little bit better than Hill's as well. I think the overall usage rate of Ntilikina can and should be higher than George Hill as well, so I guess this is assuming that Frank does not make the progress on his handle and his overall ability to attack that I think he can make. So I think he can end up being a better player than George Hill overall. I think Mike Conley could be more of an accurate comparison. Now, this previous season, Mike Conley put up over 20 points a game, or right around 20 points a game, and maybe Frank won't be able to do that until a bit longer into his career, similar to Mike Conley. but for the majority of Conley's career, he's been a 15-point, 6-assist, very good 3-point shooting point guard who was always the leader of the team, even if he wasn't necessarily averaging the most points. I think a similar thing could be said for Ntilikina. Defensively, Conley is smaller than Frank. I mean, he's shorter, he doesn't weigh as much, so there's a chance that Frank could be more of a multi-position defender than Mike is. And, I mean, I think that's a fair comparison. Mike Conley, if we assume everything goes right with Ntilikina. Now, if Frank just becomes a lethal 3-point shooter and is able to make 7 to 8, or attempt 7 to 8 threes a game and still shoot very well, then we could be looking at like a Kyle Lowry comparison. But similar to Conley, it took Lowry a while to really become that big-time scorer. For a lot of his career, he was like a 13, 14-point guy. I think that's a fair expectation for Ntilikina, to have a few seasons where he's in the teens in terms of scoring, but he's really efficient and the 3-point shooting is good, and then maybe later on, as he progresses on a few things, the scoring could go up. Now, Porzingis is going to make his day easier, because anytime Porzingis is involved in anything, the defense is going to have to throw a lot of attention at him, which can lead to ball handlers and guards getting a few more easy looks a game. A big thing for Ntilikina is just going to be how effective is he in the pick and roll, the pull-up mid-range jumpers, his overall ball handling ability. Can he beat guys one-on-one? Like I said before, I think Mike Conley is a really fair comparison for him. It's going to take a minute, he's only 19 years old, but the payoff should be really good.